I think there's a huge part that's hard to be able to heal with a toxic person because of that constant re-triggering. Do you feel addicted to the toxic person in your life? Have you ever questioned whether you would have left the relationship earlier if you were stronger? To be quite honest, the majority of narcissists think you're too naive and too stupid to actually do anything about it. You have the narcissist that'll just walk out, they'll just discard you and move on to the next one. What happens when you leave a narcissist? He's trying to be able to control the narrative. He's trying to be able to control you. He's trying to be able to control your perception. What about when you leave the narcissist and then he starts to get better? This doesn't make any sense at all. Are you in a narcissistic relationship and you're not sure how to leave? How do I get the motivation? How do I actually leave? The narcissist that's in your life doesn't care about you and wants you to leave. Are you stuck in a relationship with a narcissist? Are you in that toxic relationship? You can't get out, you don't know what to do, and you're like, I just need to figure out how to heal, but I don't think that's possible. Well, you're right that it's really, really hard and it's close to impossible, because when you're healing with a toxic person, it can almost be impossible to get out of. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. We do it on all the different platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, to try to provide people with an awareness of narcissistic abuse and how it destroys lives. I try to share sometimes bits and pieces of the stuff that I've done and things that have been in my past to try to give people awareness of what's happened and what to look out for. We're also not just about awareness, but growth, healing, and change of trying to help people move forward in their healing process, to get clarity from the confusion that they've been involved in, and they don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's up, what's down, anything, because they've lost the sense of self. So we try to provide that by meeting with people one-on-one to help break the trauma bond, rewire their mindset, to get it plugged into the NARC app, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. That NARC app has a place where you can get advice, you can get support, encouragement, you can track your no contact, record your truth, take courses, join weekly lives, monthly coaching calls, all different things to help you in that growth and that healing process. You can just look at that up at narcapp.com. If you want to talk to me sometime, you can go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to interact with you there. When you're with a narcissist, it's very, very hard to heal. It's very hard to heal when you're with someone, period. But when you're with a toxic person, it becomes even harder because you're dealing with toxic behaviors and triggers and things that they're trying to do to control you every single day. And there's no break. You're walking on eggshells. You're constantly getting triggered. There's all different things that are happening. And you're like, I just want to heal, but I'm not sure how because it seems impossible. The reason why it seems impossible is being with a narcissist in that relationship and trying to heal yourself is hard because you're constantly getting re-triggered and reopening trauma daily with that relationship. Think of it if you had a burn that was on your arm and you bandaged it up, and each day you ripped off the band-aid to see if it was healed, and each time you'd rip it off, it'd open the wound back up again. That's what's happening a lot of times when you're with a narcissist and you're trying to heal. It's just like, let me work on my healing today. And you rip it off. Oh, man, it's not healed. And then you put it back on. And then you're like, let me work on my healing today. And then you rip it off and, oh, it's not healed. And it's never going to heal because you're still with that person. I think there's a huge part that's hard to be able to heal with a toxic person because of that constant re-triggering. Without at least a break, a distance, or complete no contact, there's not a really good way to heal. You see, the reason why is being with a narcissist, you start to develop what we call a trauma bond. And a trauma bond goes together with hope, potential, and cognitive dissonance. It's that stuff that keeps you there with the possibility of something might work out. The breadcrumbing of maybe this relationship will be the relationship that will finally fix, that I'll finally get better with this person, that they'll fix themselves, that they'll finally be loving again. And all these things keeps you locked in to a toxic relationship. With the cognitive dissonance, it's the idea of two opposing thoughts. And you're not sure which to be able to pick, so you pick the easiest one oftentimes, which is just their words, not their actions that actually show you completely opposite of the words they're saying. They'll say they're loving, but they'll end up hurting you and abusing you and treating you awful. Well, a lot of times the only way to break a trauma bond, especially completely, is to get to a place where you go no contact. where you're away from the narcissist and you've broken that hold that they have on you. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to be able to break that when there's constant trauma around you every single day. And a lot of people have a really hard time with it. Well, first off, when you think about the idea that I can't leave, I want to first tell you that if you say you can't leave, you're 100% right, because your mindset will close off any avenues that are a possibility of getting you out, and you'll be limited by your own self-talk of saying that you can't leave. I've worked with people all across the world, all across the country that have said that have left, that have been able to change their mindset and be like, no, we got out. We went here, we did this, whatever it is, they've gotten out. There's been some people who have been in such abusive relationships that they've gotten out and they've gone to like a halfway house. They've gone to a homeless shelter, like anything to be able to get out, figure it out, and then start working from there. But oftentimes, if your safety is in question or your kid's safety is in question or that toxicity and all those different things, you need to get out. You need to make sure that you're safe. Please be careful if you're with a narcissistic and a toxic person. Maybe in the moment you can't leave. Maybe you're building a plan to be able to get out, and that's good because you need like an exit strategy. It's not going to work long term with someone who doesn't care about you. They only care about themselves, and they're willing to do anything and everything to either keep you or hurt you to stay in the relationship. One of the things, if you're stuck in the relationship, is to start building a buffer in communication and a buffer in general. So when we're talking about a buffer, it's like the idea of like putting something in between that still lets communication go through, but kind of like lets it lag a little bit. It lets it buffer for a minute where everything just freezes and then it finally goes through. So when we're thinking about this in communication, especially, let's talk about like responding to texts. Because a lot of times you have a narcissist that they want you to respond instantly. Well, you've been trained to do that. You've been trained to be triggered every time they text you being like, I have to respond right now. This is what I have to do. Well, sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, okay, they just text me. I'm going to give it 5 minutes and then I'm going to respond. And you slowly build up. It takes a good while. You slowly build up a buffer where they don't expect you to respond instantly anymore. What that does is it starts to reduce the trigger that hits you every single time of that anxiety of like, I have to answer right now. But sometimes it helps to start putting a buffer in to start slowing it down a little bit. You have to start disconnecting from the blame because the narcissist will put the blame back on you. They'll say it's your fault. It's your responsibility. You have to kind of pull back and disconnect from that and understand where that blame is coming from. The toxic person that's screaming and yelling at you saying it's your fault and you're like, no, I don't think it is. But you have to start with that in the mind of like building that freedom. Otherwise, you'll always be stuck. A lot of times people will journal. To start writing stuff down to keep yourself sane of understanding, hey, this is what actually happened. This is what actually went down when we communicated, when they lied to me, when they gaslit me, all these kind of things. So it helps to be able to journal to keep yourself sane, okay? If you can, get into therapy, hire a coach, work on yourself. Because the biggest part is like working on yourself to be able to get free from the narcissist. Take back your power. See how things affect you. Take back the triggers that the other person is letting control you and start working through understanding your worth and your value. A lot of times when people are with a narcissist, they don't know their worth and they don't know who they are and they don't know their value. So when you start diving into healing practices to work through that situation and to work to build those up, it becomes a healthy place that you start taking back your power because you're raising your confidence. Think of it, a lot of times confidence is completely knocked down. You don't know anything, you can't do anything, you can't go anywhere. Like all these kind of things, your confidence is knocked down and you feel like, I don't know what to do. I can't make a decision, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything. All those things a lot of times happen. Well, you have to slowly build that up. Oftentimes it's building it up with just tiny, small repetitions of doing one practice and you're like, okay, I did that. Now let's do it again. Now let's do it again. Now let's do it again. A lot of confidence is built up just by daily repetition and showing up to do the things that you said you were going to do. Well, like I said, it's a lot easier to heal when you get away, at least for a short time, at least permanently. You have to get away so that you can focus on you. But just getting away a lot of times doesn't fix the problem. Just having distance or knowledge or space doesn't always fix the problem and doesn't always get rid of the trauma bond that's in your life and stuck in your head. Because typically the trauma bond, the hope, the potential, and the cognitive dissonance is based on a story that you're telling yourself. is based on a false narrative that you've been projecting onto the other person or applying to yourself that's actually not true. And until you start getting down underneath the surface and figure out, wait a second, this isn't true. I need to find out the truth of the situation, not necessarily the facts of like, did they cheat, did they not cheat, but the truth of what was demonstrated on a day-to-day basis so that you can be free. That's the goal. And so I hope you'll go after that and you'll understand that, hey, the fantasy that you believe is oftentimes rooted in the lies that the narcissist tells, but also the lies that you believe over a period of time. I want to remind you today that you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not hopeless. And if you're going through all of this, you need support, you need a system, you need people that are going to be in your corner. So please reach out for help. Do you feel addicted to the toxic person in your life? Maybe you've left the relationship over and over and you keep going back to him. Like you keep knowing, like logically, you're like, this guy is not good for me. Like every time I go with him, I have this anxiety, I have this stress, I'm walking on eggshells, like I'm getting blamed for everything. Like I know it's not a good thing, but I don't know if I can actually do this without him, because every time I break up with him, every time I leave, every time I go no contact, it only lasts maybe a day, maybe even a week at the most. But that's excruciating. Like that's super painful to have to go through that. And you see this happen over and over and over again, where you keep going back to him over and over and over again. Maybe you're watching this video and it's not you going back and forth to the same person, but it's you going back and forth to the same type of person. Just a different face, a different version, a different mask, a different name. But it's the same type of person. You're going from overt to covert, covert to overt, narcissist to narcissist, toxic to toxic. It doesn't matter. You keep seeing this cycle. Maybe you're at the place where you're realizing, hey, I'm actually addicted to this person, to this type of person, to this version, whatever it might be. If that's you today, like type in the word addicted, just so other people understand, like they're not alone. Like other people are struggling with this too. It's not just you. I don't say that to discount what you're going through. I say that to just open up the door and saying, hey, there's more people struggling with this than what you realize, and there's a possibility of you being free from it. But you have to be willing to actually do the work. When you're at this place where you're addicted to this person, it's typically been manufactured. Like it's typically been brought to the place where this person makes you feel and think that they're the only person in your life that will give you worth, value, or sustain the relationship in a healthy and a positive way, even though you know it's negative and it's awful. Sometimes this addiction is because you've already set up this image with everybody else. Meaning when the relationship first started and the love bombing, the great times happened, you told that and broadcasted that, showed everybody that you were with your soulmate, the love of your life. And then as it turned sour, you kept that image. You were like, I don't want to show people it's bad because I told everybody it was good. And then it keeps you locked in even more. Maybe you're at the place where it doesn't feel like you can live without this person. Like leaving this person feels like you're on a physical, like drug withdrawal. Like you've got different things happening inside your body, inside your emotions, inside your feelings, inside your mind. That's like, I have to go back. If you're at this place where you feel addicted, I want you to know if you've been with a toxic person, if you're involved with a narcissist that has manipulated you to this way, how you're feeling in the moment is natural. Now, is it right or is it good? No, but it's natural based on what he's put you through. So I want to say this for a moment, just to have a brief pause for you to be able to understand, hey, it's okay. It's not okay that you're addicted. It's not okay that you're in this place, but take a moment. Just say, hey, it's okay. Because I need you to understand, based on manipulation tactics, based on the confusion that he puts you in, you get to a place where you feel addicted. That no one else is going to love you, that no one else is going to acknowledge your worth, no one's going to love a single mom with kids, like no one's going to, like you're not going to make it work unless it's with him. It's like this tunnel vision that happens. And you're like, out of the billions of people in the world, this is the only one that gets me. This is the only one that understands. This is the only one that's perfect for me. And it locks you in. You're like, I can't lose this person. So you stay so fixed on this person that you don't get free. Now, a narcissist oftentimes is counting on you to be addicted to them. He's counting on you not to leave. Most narcissists are like, what? They left me? I can't believe that. But it's all just a show. Okay? Most narcissists don't think that you have the guts to actually leave. Most narcissists think you're naive, you're stupid, and that you're going to continue in the relationship over and over and over again because you're not going to leave them because they're so amazing. That's how it works. So if you're like, oh, but I'm afraid about leaving, understand he's counting on that. Understands he expects that. Understand that he wants to keep you in this so that you stay addicted to him. Why? Because you give him supply. You're like, but I don't even do anything for him. You're there. You're enabling him because he's still in your life. He's still letting you like exist in his life. There's still this back and forth. Everything will get twisted in the mind of a narcissist to be about him. You're like, but the other day I called him out and I told him that I hate him. Okay, you just gave him supply. But the other day I showed up and I told him I loved him and I did everything for him. Okay, you just showed him supply. But the other day I called him out. I told him he was a narcissist. I showed him. I did this. You just gave him supply. Like, do you understand? A narcissist will continue to do things over and over and over again. And when they get a response from you, it's like validation of like, yep, amazing. Yep, this is what I got. Yep, she's still thinking about me. Yep, you're still giving them supply. Okay, this addiction cycle that you're going through right now, whether it's with the same person or whether it's different guys over and over and over again, needs to be broken. Now, I want you to consider for a moment, like, what happens if you don't break it? What happens if you continue down this cycle? Where are you going to be in 2 years? Maybe you've already been with this person for 2 years or 20 years. Where are you going to be in 2 years if this cycle continues? If you continue showing up the way that you're showing up, if you continue being hurt the way that you're being hurt, if you continue to have your confidence broken down, your self-esteem like completely demolished, like where are you going to be? Sit with it. Think about it. Write it down. Where are you going to be in 2 years? How's it going to affect you mentally, emotionally, physically? How's it going to affect the kids? How's it going to affect other friendships, relationships? How's it going to affect you? Because if you don't start looking at this in the face and say, hey, if I don't make a change from this addiction that I'm stuck in, it will ruin me. It will condition your kids to be a narcissist or to be with a narcissist down the road. It will show them that mom said, hey, it's okay to be in this type of relationship by her example. And as a result, they will continue to spiral out. You will develop disconnection with your kids. You will probably ultimately lose them. What is it going to cost you if you continue to stay in this relationship over and over? If we continue having this cycle over and over, what is it going to cost you? If you're actually ready to break the cycle now, then go to rawmotivations.com. I want to talk to you today. Have you ever questioned whether you would have left the relationship earlier if you were stronger? Maybe you're at the place where you're looking back and you're like, if I'd only done this, then this wouldn't have happened. And you start playing the if-then game of if I would have done this, then he wouldn't have left me. If I would have done this, then I would have left sooner. If I would have been better or stronger or healthier or looked better or had more finances or whatever, then it might have changed. We run into the issue where people start to question and doubt everything that's happened in the past relationship. Oftentimes because a narcissist makes you doubt all of your reality. But then you start doubting you, especially wondering, okay, why didn't I leave? Why wasn't this something I actually saw? Today I want to talk to the common struggle of exploring this piece of the thoughts and the doubts that often rise up when you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship and even at the end of it. And I'm hoping like to be able to walk through this to help you understand like steps moving forward in healing of this doubt piece. Because managing this self-doubt can be extremely hard, can be extremely difficult. And in talking with hundreds and hundreds of people that have been through narcissistic relationships, the self-doubt that kicks in, especially right after, is almost debilitating. Like it will leave people questioning and wondering and thinking and ruminating over and over and over about, wait, what about this? Why this? Maybe I should have, and it goes on and on. Have you had doubts today? Have you had doubts about the relationship? If so, I want you to leave a comment down below. Just say, I struggle with doubts too. Because just you saying that might help other people understand that they're not alone and that they can actually be free too. When we talk through this aspect of self-doubt, I want to first talk about understanding it and navigating the whys. It's important to understand that self-doubt, it's natural in the complexities of narcissistic abuse. Like when I talk to people and we sit down, we're going back and forth, understanding their story and they're questioning things. I oftentimes have to tell them, hey, it's natural right now that you're questioning this. It's natural that you're upset about this. It's natural that you're wondering, why did this happen? How did this happen? It's natural. It doesn't feel natural in the moment because you're not used to it. It doesn't feel natural in the moment because it doesn't feel happy or good or fun by any means. But it is natural. because of the crazy making that you've been through, because of the abuse that you've been through, it's natural to start doubting yourself, mainly because the narcissist started putting that on you over and over and over again. Like he started telling you you weren't worth anything. He started telling you that you couldn't make these decisions. He started telling you all these different things to make you doubt, to make you feel like you weren't good enough. One of the things that people ask is the question of, could I have done more? Like, what could I have done more to actually change the end result? At the end of the day, unfortunately, there's a lot of times nothing you could have done to change the end result. Now, what do I mean by that? Oftentimes in a narcissistic relationship, what you do is inconsequential to what the narcissist actually does. Why? Because the narcissist matters more than you do, so therefore the things you do don't really matter. Now, bring that to full aspect. If you got to the place where you allowed the abuse and you said, hey, it's okay and it's acceptable for you to keep abusing me, then it might last a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, how he's showing up is still going to be the same way. It's not going to change. It's not going to be, oh, I showed up with more love, so then now he loves me more. It doesn't work that way. You show up with more love, so that means there's more love that he takes. The difference is when you work on the relationship of like, can I do more? You get to the place you start to realize if I would have done more or if I would have done less, it wouldn't have changed the end result. Because nothing you've done so far has actually changed the other person. No amount of begging and of pleading and of asking this person to go to therapy or even them going to therapy has actually done the work in changing how they've actually shown up. Yeah, there's been like modifications. There's been like different pieces that have morphed and formed and kind of changed just slightly. But nothing that's actually been truly transformative. Nothing has actually taken this person from point A to point B where you've seen a radical difference in their life. So as a result, you start to question, maybe I should have done something more. And you start to doubt yourself. You start to think this wasn't good enough and you start to beat yourself up. This is especially hard after the relationship because you've beat yourself up in the relationship by how that person is treated and talked and put you down. And then you start beating yourself up after the relationship based on their voice still in your head, telling you that you weren't good enough, telling you that it was your fault, telling you all these different things and putting you down over and over and over again. Sometimes people have the thought of, would I have left if I was stronger? And you start to beat yourself up about like, oh, man, it's my fault. Like I should have shown up different. I should have shown up better. And all these thoughts start to play. And the thing is, if you would have shown up stronger, it might have caused the relationship to end sooner because that person would have been held accountable or that person wouldn't have liked it, or it could have ramped up with the abuse faster. It's hard to know. But the doubt will be something that will slowly eat you away. It will slowly be overwhelming. It'll slowly stem from a place where all of the manipulation that's been on you like starts to weigh on you so much that you doubt yourself about everything. We see this oftentimes in the workplace environment or as you're running your own business, where you have been running your own business, you have been surviving as a single mom, you have been providing for your kids for a period of time, and all of a sudden you no longer have this person in your life. And you start doubting yourself of like, I don't think I can actually do it. I was on live the other day and we were talking back and forth and someone was interacting with like, yeah, I'm worried about doing it on my own. They were doubting their own abilities to be able to provide and to be able to take care of their kids. And the thing that they had to understand is they'd already been doing it on their own. You might be watching this today, and if you sat down and we'd scripted out and listed out the facts of the situation, you might realize you've been doing this on your own basically the entire time. The other person in your life didn't decide to show up consistently. So as a result, you're doubting, I don't know if I can do this on my own. But when you look back at the past, you start to realize you've actually been doing it on your own the entire time. Maybe you're just at the point today where you're questioning your decision, whether you should or shouldn't have left the relationship. Maybe you wondered, maybe I could have endured it just a little bit longer, thinking that you leaving meant that you're weak rather than you being strong. There's this thought and this idea that you didn't try hard enough, or you didn't work hard enough, or you didn't put in enough effort. We see this a lot of times from a Christian frame or from a religious aspect of, oh, you gave up on the marriage or you gave up on the relationship. When in reality, you should never be in a relationship that is filled with abuse. But all these different pieces and nuances in life will start to make you doubt yourself. So what do we do about this? How do we actually help you reclaim your power and move forward? Because it's not just enough just to recognize it, but we also have to work on like managing the self-doubt and like helping you actually move forward in understanding who you are and how to continue moving forward in your growth. Part of it comes down to self-compassion, like practicing self-compassion by treating yourself with the same kindness that you'd offer a friend facing the similar doubts. And this could be sitting down and journaling. This could be doing a gratitude journal, like working through the process of like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to change so that I can actually get to the place where I see myself as being confident and capable? Because everybody else, because the toxic person has been putting you down. So you're like, I don't know if this is even possible. But we have to take that first step. This healing piece is a journey. There's going to be different setbacks and doubts and ideas. And part of the doubts that you're facing are because you haven't walked this before. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you're not smart enough or good enough or any of these things. It just means that this is a road that you haven't walked down before. This is where we try to help support people in communities, because if we can put you around other people that are walking on the same path, it helps you understand you're not alone. There's other people out there that are struggling and dealing with the same thing and overcoming it step by step. The other piece is just taking a moment to check reality, to remind yourself the reality of the relationship that you were in, like the abuse that you suffered of saying like, no, like it's actually a good thing that I am out. Like there isn't anything else that I could have done. Like there isn't any other piece that I could have changed or developed that would have changed him, because when I look at the facts, nothing would have changed. So as you sit there and you go through the entire thing of like, okay, let me go ahead and write down what happened. He did this. This happened. This was the abuse. And all of a sudden you start to realize, wait a second, I changed everything for this person and they didn't change anything for me. Like I morphed and modified who I was to be the person that they wanted me to be. And they never changed anything. They kept showing up abusive over and over and over, even though they said, we're going to change. So write down all the tactics, all the things that happened in the relationship and that were used to abuse and affect your well-being. And just using this as a reality check of like, wait a second, like I'm actually glad I'm out because this is how it was. Then I want you to reach out for help. Like if we can help you in any single way, we want to be able to connect you with other survivors, other people that are going through the same exact thing. This is why we have a 7-day challenge called Escape Toxicity. You can go to escapetoxicity.com today to be able to see and understand about it. But just helping you understand narcissistic abuse, understand, wait a second, was I the narcissist? Like, was it just me reacting? What is reactive abuse? What about the shame? What about the guilt? How do I learn about this? I want to invite you to go to escapetoxicity.com today. It's a 7-day challenge. It's really short. It's really simple. It's just putting you in the same room with other people that are going through the same thing. Understanding that their self-doubt has been overcome with the education, with the knowledge, with the way to be able to work through the triggers that are affecting you on a day-to-day basis. That healing is there for you as well. Go to escapetoxicity.com today. To be quite honest, the majority of narcissists think you're too naive and too stupid to actually do anything about it. The reason why they think that is because they already don't love and don't respect you. They only care about what they get in the moment. And what they get in the moment is a toaster, an appliance that does what they want it to do. And when that breaks, when it doesn't work how they want it to work, then they'll just move on to the next person. My wife and I had been married for a little bit over a year when the first affair started. And when the first affair started, I kept it silent from her for about a year. And then ended up coming out and I'm confessing it. All this stuff kind of blew up. We went to counseling, Christian counseling, which was awful. We tried to fix different things. I didn't know what was wrong with me at that point and thought, okay, maybe it'll just go away. Maybe it'll just figure itself out in one sense, but didn't really find the healing. Neither one of us did. We didn't really have a clue of what we were dealing with at that point. Then moved on and just fell into another one. Like, there's another piece of like, okay, let me go find someone else. And it wasn't even a conscious thought per se, but it just happened. And I didn't have the intention of stopping it. I didn't have the intention of actually valuing my wife the way that she should. And so these affairs just kept happening. And as they kept happening, it got to a place where I thought I might be cursed. Like, this just might be my blight in life. Like, every couple of years, it's going to be an affair, and it's just going to happen this way. And skewed up thinking, it doesn't even make sense, but just bear with me for a second. And so going through this process got to a place where I finally confessed the other affairs. And so confessed 3 other at the same time. And there was a piece of me when I confessed it that there was a part of me, like the negative, toxic side of my mind, thinking, maybe if I confess this, she'll leave. Like, maybe if I do this, this will be the final catalyst that will force her to leave in that moment so that I can be free. So I can go do what I want to do. So I can go be with the girls I want to be with. So I can go live the life that I want to live. So I can live the single life and just not have anyone. Like, there was so many different pieces inside of me that was thinking, maybe I'll do this and it'll just push her over the edge. But at the same time, there was this piece inside of me that knew she wasn't going to leave. And it also frustrated me. Frustrated me because I had this narrative playing through my head that I was a victim. That I was the person that wasn't getting the sex that I wanted, getting the intimacy that I wanted, getting the love and connection, respect that I wanted, when all of that was just from me. It wasn't because my wife was this awful person. It was because I was an awful person, not creating a safe place for her. And as a result, she couldn't even show up in a safe way. She couldn't show up in a way that would even open up to me. And so as it's continued, the abuse mentally and emotionally, the trauma, the gaslighting, the lies, all of the different affairs, all of this stuff came out. And it continued in the aspect that my wife didn't leave. Like, I thought that was my meal ticket. I thought I was like, I'm out. And this thing inside of this is I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be the one to physically leave, to actually break up, to get a divorce. Because I didn't want to look like the bad person. I had this image inside my head that I had to keep up. Like, I'm a good person. I'm a good guy. Even though I wasn't, even though I knew I wasn't, I still had to keep that thought, that image, to keep me just sane, keep me a normal person, supposedly. And so through all of this, there's this piece that I got to realize and just got used to and accustomed to, that my wife wouldn't leave. There wasn't going to be this scenario that she would leave. Now, at that point, I didn't have a clue of what a trauma bond was. I didn't know anything about the obsession or the addiction. I didn't have a clue about the hope that she had, that I would change, the potential that she saw in me, thinking, well, he used to be this great guy, maybe he'll go back to that. And all of these different pieces that had her locked, that had her really like stuck inside the relationship so much that how I would communicate, how I'd talk, how I'd manipulate would just keep her back. There'd be times where she would think about leaving, or times where she would pack up her bags and say, I am leaving, or times she would jump in the car and leave. But there was this piece inside of my mind that was always like, she's not leaving. Because I knew that there was this type of hold on her. I knew this was type of like trauma bond, this piece. I didn't have the words for it. I just knew she wasn't going to leave. Like, I didn't have this concern or doubt. So when we finally got to the place where she did leave, it was more of a surprise to me. Then it was this piece of relief of, whew, now I know, now she's gone. There's a piece of like, okay, let me call someone else. Let me live my life how I want to live. This still wasn't fulfilling. It still didn't go in the direction that I wanted it to or that I thought it would. All of that continued to crash and burn because of me. I tell you all this because I want you to understand that the toxic guy in your life gets used to manipulating you. Like, gets used to using you and abusing you. Gets used to you putting up with so much of his shit that he knows that you're not going to leave. He knows that you're not going to actually find yourself enough to move out, to file divorce, to actually step into your power of who you're called to be. And as a result, he knows you're just going to stay here pretty much forever. This is a weird thought for some people. They think, how could he even think that? How could he even know that? Well, the fact of the matter is you're still with him right now. And unless you're making a strategy to actually be free, unless you're actually healing and changing your mindset, you're going to still keep believing everything that he says. You'll still believe his lies. You'll still believe that he's changing. You'll still believe that he's growing, when in reality, you haven't seen the evidence of it. If you sat down and you had to write on a sheet of paper the facts, like you were in a courtroom, the actual demonstration, the evidence of how he loves, cares, and respects about you, you would probably come up short. Simply because a lot of narcissists are very much with the words and not much with the actions. Telling you that they love you, telling you that he cares about you, but in reality, he doesn't actually show it. He doesn't actually demonstrate it on a day-to-day basis. And so you're left thinking, well, is he going to change? Is it going to be different? When you get to this place where you're just locked into confusion, he knows you're not going to leave. I've said this several times, but I feel like people don't actually understand this to the level that they need to. If he can keep you in confusion, he wins. If he can keep you confused, you stay. If he can keep you confused, you're stuck. This is a piece that you need to be able to grasp and understand is the first level of you coming to this place of awareness is necessary for you to start getting clear. Because if you don't get clear, you're going to start to believe all of his lies. You're going to start to believe all the things he places on you. When in reality, a lot of the things he places on you is to keep you in the fog. Oftentimes we'll describe fog as fear, as obligation, and as guilt. Different pieces that are leveraged against you to keep you stuck. It's literally like a fog, like a brain fog, like a mental uncertainty, like a lack of decision making, like confusion, thinking, how do I even navigate the different pieces of life? We see people that are powerful businesswomen, but as a result, they feel like they can't make even healthy decisions about themselves, about their family, even about their businesses, simply because the narcissist beat them up mentally and emotionally and got them confused. Because then they feel like it's my fault. It's something that I did. When in reality, he's just trying to keep you confused. If he can keep you confused, you don't have clarity, you don't make a move. This is one of the things that narcissist has to do. Keep you stuck. This is why he's going to use word salad. He's going to communicate many different topics, many different ways. Circular reasoning of getting to the place of saying, hey, this is what's going on, and then having this conversation that goes all the way around and comes back to where you originally started. And you think, I thought we just talked about this. And he's like, no, we haven't actually resolved it. You just have a communication problem. And he projects things back onto you. You see, there's so many ways that a narcissist can keep you confused. If he can keep you confused, he can control you. Confusion for a narcissist just means another lever that he can pull in the area of control over you and over your life. The question right now is, are you stuck in the confusion? Are you stuck in the chaos of what he's putting on you? Maybe making you think that you're crazy. Maybe thinking that you're oversensitive, that you're just being too sensitive about the things that are happening, that you need to actually move forward. You need to get over it. You need to stop bringing up the past, even though he's never apologized for it. He's never admitted it, and he's never actually talked through it with you. Simply because you just need to move on. Maybe this has been a place where he's been projecting onto you, where he's been placing different lies upon you, calling you abusive, calling you emotionally manipulative, saying that you're just manipulating him to get sex, or you're manipulating him to get money, or that you're having affairs, when in reality, you've been the most faithful person. There's so many ways that a narcissist just keeps you confused and keeps you fighting with crazy. Think of it for a moment where he keeps projecting onto you, telling you that you're the cheater. You haven't cheated at all, but he keeps saying that you're cheating. Oh, is that your boyfriend? Who's on the phone? Who are you talking to? Well, that took you a while. Did you meet up with your boyfriend while you were out at work today? Oh, who did you have coffee with today? Was it your boyfriend? Like, so many different ways he's going to just project stuff onto you. Why? Typically because he's already doing it. The other piece is when he does this, you spend too much time arguing with crazy. You spend too much time trying to justify and trying to prove that you didn't do something that you didn't do. This puts you in a place where you start to feel crazy. Puts you in a place where you're confused, thinking, why is this even happening? Why am I fighting with this? Why am I arguing with this? It's because he has to keep you confused. If he can keep you confused, he knows you won't leave. You won't actually move out. You won't actually be free. To be quite honest, the majority of narcissists think you're too naive and too stupid to actually do anything about it. The reason why they think that is because they already don't love and don't respect you. They only care about what they get in the moment. And what they get in the moment is a toaster, an appliance that does what they want it to do. And when that breaks, when it doesn't work how they want it to work, then they'll just move on to the next person. Open up the next supply, work on the next toaster, whatever it might be. So you need to understand there's this piece where he thinks that you're too naive, you're too stupid, and you're confused. So why would you leave him? Maybe it's because of the inflated ego. He's the catch, so you wouldn't want to leave him anyways. Why would you leave him? Because he's so amazing. There's many different ways that the narcissist can navigate and manipulate to make sure that you just stay confused and you stay stuck. If you're currently stuck today, if you're currently confused, is he a narcissist or not? I want to be able to help you understand this, and I want to be able to help you break free mentally and emotionally. Because what happens if we don't? If you don't actually get free, can you live with how your life is right now for the next year? For the next 5 years? Is this what you want your life to be like? Is this the relationship that you want to have? Is this the connection? Is this the confusion and the chaos that you want to be in 5 years from now? If it's not, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough and let me explain how I help liberate women trapped in toxic relationships to find freedom. A lot of times a narcissist is going to give you a lot of mixed signals whenever the relationship is coming to a close. Sometimes that's just out of desperation. Sometimes that's out of manipulation. Sometimes, who knows? They kind of go crazy sometimes at the end of that relationship. So you might be in a relationship. You might have gotten out one. Maybe you're in the dating phase, or you're, a fiance or something like that, or you're married, or you're just a life partner there, and you're in this state of this relationship sucks. Like, this relationship is not in a healthy spot. It's not going in a healthy direction. The other person is not supporting. They're controlling. They're abusive. They're manipulating. They're gaslighting. Like, go down a whole list and a whole litany of everything that they're doing, and you start realizing, like, hey, I need to get out. Sometimes that'll come out in arguments. That'll come out in frustrations where you start talking like, maybe this isn't the best thing for me. Maybe this isn't where we should be. Maybe this isn't, maybe this just isn't working out. And in some relationships or in people that you've seen, like, sometimes that works. Sometimes they can have a conversation and both parties agree, like, okay, we're going to separate. We're going to break up. We're going to get a divorce. That's typically not how it happens with a narcissist. You have the narcissist that'll just walk out, they'll just discard you and move on to the next one. Or you have the ones that are heavily involved in the relationship, in the manipulation, the gaslighting, the control, everything like that. And you start to bring up the idea of leaving, all hell breaks loose. You'll see the rage, you'll see the anger, you'll see the manipulation, all the tactics like accelerate and go up to a whole nother level. Because they don't want you to leave. They don't want you to actually walk out that door and leave, because a lot of times you're helping them boost their ego to other people. So when you think about it, especially in a marriage, I see this a lot in marriages where you'll have someone, let's say the narcissist, you'll have the narcissist, or he starts to realize that the marriage is falling apart. He starts to realize that you're actually considering taking back your power, taking back your control, and leaving the relationship. Well, first off, a lot of times you're going to love bomb. So he's going to come home, give you flowers, try to make you feel better, try to have a connecting point. That might not work. Well, I mean, it won't work long term, but that might not work for the moment. So then he's going to try to look for what's another way. Okay, now we start hitting a little bit more desperation phase of, okay, well, we just need to work on our communication. Like, that's all it really is. Like, it's not really my fault. It's not really your fault. Like, we both have issues, but we just need to work on our communication. Okay, well, maybe we need to go to counseling. Like, okay, let's go to couples counseling. That way we can work on our communication issues. We can try to fix this up, everything like this. And you start seeing like slight bits of like desperation of like, oh, I want to save the marriage, or oh, I want to save this relationship. And for most people in those times, it can seem really conflicting and seem like, oh, like they actually do want to change. Like, oh, there actually is kind of hope. And they start thinking like, this might actually work. So then they go to counseling, they go to therapy, things like that. And all of a sudden they realize like, this is not what it's cracked up to be. They walk into the therapy, you walk into the counseling center, and you sit down and you start talking to the person. And all of a sudden you realize that the person beside you is completely different than the person that you interact with at home. All of a sudden they're nice, they're interacting, and they start tweaking every single story, thing that gets brought up, discrediting you, defaming you, and making every single thing that you've said seem like it's just like very pitiful, seem like it's very small. They'll literally twist every single thing. They'll say you're overreacting. They'll say like how they tried, but you did this, how you responded and how you were abusive. Like, they'll literally take every single thing that they've done. They'll try to figure out a way and be able to twist it back on you. That's why I advise multiple times. I've said to multiple people, but there's still a lot more people out there that need to hear this. If you are with a narcissist, if you know you're with a toxic person, with a narcissist, do not go to couples counseling. Because couples counseling is just a way to manipulate and destroy you even further. Trust me on this. Like, I've seen it happen. I have countless stories of people that I've talked to one-on-one, people that have messaged in or have emailed the website and have said, hey, like, this is true. We went to counseling, it went like this. We went to counseling, it went like this. We went to counseling, it went like this. The therapist, he gaslit me. He absolutely, like, went to a whole nother level. Like, when she was in counseling, like, she completely manipulated the situation and made it seem like I was the bad guy when, et cetera, et cetera. Like, literally, the list goes on and on of example and example of people that have gone to couples counseling and actually seen it just fall apart and be like the worst thing ever, because you see the empath that walks in that all of a sudden walks out starting to question themselves if they're the narcissist. Sometimes the therapist will question that. Sometimes the counselor will be like, oh, I'm going to side with the narcissist. Like, literally, a lot of times it will fall apart really quickly. Now, there's other times where you might be in counseling and it might seem like decent. Like, the actual counseling session, like, the narcissist seemed cordial, you seem cordial, like, everybody seemed to, like, get along, and then you get in the car. And in the car comes the rage, in the car comes the anger, in the car comes the manipulation that gets you to the place of, like, whoa, like, I'm the reason that my husband's a narcissist. No, you're not. You might think that, you might wonder that, because they're great at gaslighting, they're great at manipulating, because they'll come to the table and they'll say, hey, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't be this way. And that's where you need to change that mindset. You need to change that thought in your head. Be like, no, if you were a fucking man, you would make your own decisions and you would learn to live in a way that's honoring and respectful to another person. That's it. But how it gets twisted in counseling or after counseling will completely mess with your mind, and you'll completely be so confused of what's going on. So, end of relationship, you'll have, the husband, the spouse, the partner, like whoever it is, they'll have maybe some love bombing, gaslighting, all this kind of stuff. So love bombing comes out first. Then you have like, okay, like let's try to go to counseling. Maybe you've experienced that. If you have, like, leave some comments down below just to let people know, like, hey, it's real. It happens. Like, this is my experience. This is what happened. Don't do it. Okay. Then a lot of times you'll have gaslighting. You'll just have complete gaslighting of everything that's happened in the past. So maybe you're not going to counseling, maybe they stop love bombing, and then they're just trying to gaslight you. Like, that's not true. Like, I haven't been that bad. We haven't had that many arguments. There hasn't been this much that's gone on. I haven't abused you like that. I haven't hit you that many times. I haven't, and it'll go on and on and on to the place where you start doubting, like, like, it actually hasn't been that bad. Like I have a roof over my head. Like, they're like loving, like every 20 days. Like it actually isn't that bad. And you start justifying like every single little thing because they start gaslighting you. Like, that actually didn't happen. Like, no, I have pictures of you cheating on me. Like, no, that was something else. Like, no, like, they'll literally deny everything and they'll try to gaslight you into believing that it never happened. So they're going to come back at you. They're going to love bomb. They're going to try to get help as far as like, convincing you to go to counseling, therapy, whatever, so they can manipulate the other person. They'll see about like gaslighting you. And then sometimes you'll get to the last moment and you're getting ready to walk out the door, and guess what they do? They beg. The person that has treated you awful the entire relationship, the person that has basically told you to get out multiple times, either in their words or their actions, will all of a sudden turn around and will start begging you. And they'll start saying like, oh, I'm going to change, like I'm going to work on this, all this kind of stuff. And they'll make a lot of these future faking promises about what's going to happen. And you stand there on the edge of the door frame and you look back at the narcissist. He's crying, she's like crying, like begging you, be like, I'll do this, I'll do whatever you want, kind of thing. And there's a moment inside you that starts to think like, maybe they're right. Like maybe they will change. Maybe this could work out. Maybe this is the moment that they're going to change and switch everything up, and life is going to get back to how it was at the very, very beginning of like perfect and awesome and happy and connected. And you falter in that step for just a moment. But then you realize that the person that's standing there, or that's on their knees, or that's begging you in the moment, is the same person that for countless hours abused you, that hurt you emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually, you name it. The list goes on and on. And the person just in the past couple months when talking about divorce was the one that tried to manipulate you into staying by giving you a bunch of gifts or like lavishing praise on you. They tried to manipulate the situation by twisting it around so that you would think that it's all your fault. They tried to tell you that, hey, like, it actually didn't happen that way, and they've lied to you and they've messed with your mind to make you think that real events that have happened never even existed. And then they're there at the very end begging and pleading. And we're not talking about like lying or cheating or all the other stuff that comes along with it typically. We're just talking about those three things that have led you up to this point, and they're there at the last moment begging and pleading and crying out for you to give them one more chance. How many chances will you give someone that continues to abuse you? You see, we want to justify it. We want to say, hey, it's okay. Hey, they're going to change. Hey, all this kind of stuff. But you have to stop yourself in the moment and stop thinking with feelings and start thinking with the facts. And the facts of the matter are, hey, if they wanted to change, they would have changed the million times that I gave them before I decided I was going to leave. If they wanted to change, they would have been honest the thousands of times that I asked them, hey, just be honest with me. Tell me the truth. The truth is a lot easier for me to hear than be gaslit and get all your lies. If they wanted to change, they would have made the effort. And that change only comes from them. You can't force it. You can't manipulate it. You can't contract it. You can't have anything like that come from anyone else. It has to come from them. And if they're not willing to put forth the effort and give that change, it's not going to happen. You'd be amazed sometimes how many narcissists, how many toxic, how many abusive people at the very end will pull out all the bells and whistles to try to stop you from leaving. Why? So they can manipulate you longer, so they can control you longer, so they can keep their ego intact as far as how they look in the community, to their family, to their work, so they can preserve their financial security by living in the same house, by not having to pay child support, by not having to do X, Y, and Z, having to get lawyers, attorneys, anything like that. They'll find the easiest route that's going to keep them engaged and keeping you under control. Take back your power. Take back control. Get out. Ghost. No contact. If you like what you see here today, please subscribe. Would love for you to follow on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Just give a shout out. Like, let us know what you're dealing with. Would love to talk to you. I do one-on-ones. We love interacting with different people. So just interacting, helping you grow, helping you get from where you are now to the next place, whether that's out of an abusive relationship or whether that's working through multiple things in your life. Would love to talk to you more. Thank you so much. A lot of times what comes next, or that's already been woven into the relationship, is the smear campaign. The smear campaign that sometimes has already been inundated throughout the entire relationship, talking behind your back to different friends and family, being like, I'm concerned about her. Like, she's not showing up the same way. Like, she's acting different. Like, she's acting more frustrated. She's kind of yelling at me. She seems a little abusive. All these small little things that are slowly like getting everybody on the narcissist side. What happens when you leave a narcissist? Now, I was talking to somebody the other day about the stages of narcissistic abuse and how we go through idealization, devaluation, discard, hoover, repeat. And as you see this happen more and more in narcissistic relationships, we often don't talk about like what are the actual stages that are going on inside the narcissist mind when you leave a narcissist, when it actually goes down not how they expected, not how they planned for. And not that this is a hugely popular topic, but it is a topic that I wanted to bring up because sometimes people are asking, well, what's he going to do next? What's this going to look like? And while this isn't a cut and dry, this is how it's always going to go, this is a compilation of several different stories, my own experiences of getting to the place of understanding this is something that typically will follow a certain pattern, a certain idea to try to make sure that they feel better about themselves and ultimately you look like the bad person in the relationship. So what happens when a narcissist leaves? What happens when you leave a narcissist? Like, what is actually processing here? If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. The founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the NARC app, and your guide through the Escape Toxicity Challenge, the 7-day challenge to healing. For $7, you can get lifetime access to a community there that is going through a challenge every single day to help them grow, change, and develop their mindset. And once they graduate from there, they move on to our next stage to be able to help them continue moving forward in that healing journey to the growth mindset. So you can access that at escapetoxicity.com. So what happens when you get ready to leave The first aspect is like as you're getting ready to leave, and you might even mention this, that you're thinking about leaving, that you think about stopping the relationship because of everything that they put you through or whatever you've said in that moment, there's a big aspect that they don't believe it. Like, I didn't believe that my wife was actually ever going to leave me. Why? She was stuck. She was traumatized by it. I didn't think she would actually have the nerve or the guts to actually leave because I knew I was in control of her. I knew I was in control of the situation. And I wasn't thinking about the future. I wasn't thinking about how my actions now affected things in the future. So I was like, she's not going to leave. She's going to stay. Like, it's just going to go back to normal. Everything just goes back to normal. I'll keep doing what I do. She keep doing what she does and just keep moving forward. So there's an aspect that a lot of times narcissists won't even believe that you're going to leave. Like, they don't think that it's possible. They're like, why would you even do that? I'm the best thing ever. You're not going to find anything better. Why would you even think about leaving? So then you do. You get ready, you leave, you ghost, you block, you do whatever you need to do to get out of the relationship. Sometimes leaving, in the middle of the night, sometimes leaving when they're at work, whatever it might be. Leaving so that you're out of the relationship and you can actually heal. There's first off this aspect of surprise that comes from this level of betrayal. So a narcissist could have abused you for years, but as soon as you leave them, let's say at a moment's notice, there's this piece of like betrayal of like, how could you do that to me? And you're like, do you not remember all the abuse that you put me through? How could you do that to me? And they don't really care. Okay, at the end of the day, it's like, you just betrayed me. You just gave up on me. All these stories are going to be coming out. From the narcissist to you, all these stories are going to be coming out. Because there's an aspect of like, you just betrayed me by walking away from the relationship, and then I made hell. That's the concept. That's the idea. Well, then after surprise and this feeling of betrayal, then it goes typically to anger. Of like angry that you actually did that. Like, how could you? Yes, there's pieces of it being like tears and crying and upset, but there's a huge part that a lot of that stems out of anger. The tears are like, how do I get this person back? The anger is like, how could you do this? Because I'm entitled to you. You are mine. You were the toy that I was able to play with and put back on the shelf and then go to someone else and to repeat the cycle over and over, and you just walked away. You just got up off the shelf and you walked away. How could you actually do that? It's still that betrayal piece and that feeling of like, I'm entitled to you. I'm entitled to this relationship. I'm entitled to this image that I have in my own head and in the public eye of our family, of how we look together, of all these people saying we're really great. So I'm not going to even tell anybody because at that point I'm still in limbo trying to figure out how do I get you back. Now, then narcissists has to go through this aspect of gaslighting themselves. Not you, but gaslighting themselves. Oh, well, that's why she left. She left because she's cheating on me. She left because she doesn't care about me anymore. She left because, and there'll be this litany of different things that you've done wrong, which is why you left. Because it can't be their fault. Like for me, it could not be my fault. So it had to be her fault. It had to be that she left me. It had to be that all the affair partners, they left me. I didn't leave them. They left me. I was faithful. I was honest. I was showing up. They're the ones that gave up. So therefore, I'm the victim. So then we go into victim mode. This is where you get a lot of narcissists that avoid any aspect of rock bottom because they're like, well, let me just switch to victim mode. Like that'd be a great way to be able to do this. If I'm a victim, then it's not my fault. And again, it has to be someone else's fault. It has to go back to someone else, changing the script of what actually happened so the narcissist doesn't feel bad about themselves. So then what comes next? A lot of times what comes next, or that's already been woven into the relationship, is the smear campaign. The smear campaign that sometimes has already been inundated throughout the entire relationship, talking behind your back to different friends and family, being like, I'm concerned about her. Like, she's not showing up the same way. Like, she's acting different. Like, she's acting more frustrated. She's kind of yelling at me. She seems a little abusive. All these small little things that are slowly, like, getting everybody on the narcissist side. So you see this aspect of, like, hey, smearing of let me see, how do I need to hurt you in front of others? So that you either feel bad that you've done this to me, or you even reach back out because you're like, why are you doing this to me? And then I've got you. Or you get to the place that you start to question that you should have even left me at all because everybody else is saying, why'd you guys break up? You guys seem so perfect together. All these things when they have no clue about the relationship. That's when the narcissist starts bringing other people into the situation of like, let me bring in your family members. Let me bring in my family members to start hoovering you back. To start working as flying monkeys, checking in on you, manipulating you, putting you down, like being concerned, a concerned citizen in this situation when they have no clue of the abuse that's actually happening in the relationship. So this is when the narcissist starts to get other people that can ascribe to their reality, that they can bring under their wing and saying, like, this is what's going on. Seen this happen so many times where you get out of the relationship and the narcissist starts to go to all of your friends and family. Starts to be friends with all the people that they never wanted to be friends with before. Starts to attend the same church as you when they've never attended church in their life. Like, it's all this aspect of like, let me start to get other people under my wing. And you start to have people come to you and be like, are you okay? Like so-and-so said that you weren't doing good because of X, Y, and Z. Like, they said that you were struggling with something. Like, they'll start to give people false information just to get more reports, just to get more connection piece to you. Well, then you have the aspect of the flying monkeys not just being there to sometimes convince you of stuff, but then sometimes to be able to carry out revenge. A lot of times you see a narcissist then become really, really vindictive. This is typically when they start to see that you're consistently holding boundaries. You're consistently pushing them back, saying, hey, I'm not coming back. I'm not actually going to do this. I'm not going to actually be there for you. And so you see the narcissist then start to get really, really frustrated. Sometimes it starts to ramp it up in stalking, of like being around when he's not supposed to be around, of like following you different places, texting you like, why are you here, calling you on a bunch of different numbers. Like, we see this ramp up with vandalism, with different attacks, with physical, mental abuse that happens all around, like with this aspect of like, hey, I'm going to get back at you. Like, you made me feel this pain, I'm going to make you feel this pain. And the narcissist wants to come after you over and over because you took away their control over you. So you'll see them use the flying monkeys. Then you'll see them a lot of times use revenge, vindication of like, let me do what I need to do to you because you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to reject me like this. You're not going to take away my privilege of you like this. You're not going to make me look bad to everybody else. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make you hurt, to give you pain. Now, one of the best ways for a narcissist to give you pain is to bring in a new supply. And to post it all over social media, flash it in front of all your friends and family, and make sure everybody knows that he finally found the soulmate because you were such a broken, awful person. This is what happens. And so you start to wonder, like, wait a second, is the new supply actually getting everything that I wanted? No, because they're not getting everything that they want, which might be the same or might be different than what you actually wanted. But it's going to be held back. There's going to be this piece that a new supply oftentimes is a trigger to try to get you back and try to trigger you to run after the narcissist so that the narcissist feels better that there's someone still running after them. Because everybody else in their life keeps getting pushed away. New supply helps the narcissist then focus on the next thing. Let me go to the next person, the next thing, it'll be all fixed. The next person doesn't know me, doesn't understand anything that I've been through, so I can paint the picture how I want to paint it. I can phrase it how I want to phrase it. I can show them that I've been a victim here, that it's not my fault. That's the concept of like bringing in the new supply. Now, the crazy thing is people are like, they've got a new supply, so they're not coming back. And I'm like, no, like that's still the piece that you need to understand. A lot of times they'll still try to come back. They'll still try to interact because the new supply is not fixing the situation. New supply is not changing the person that he's claiming to be changed, even though you're going to think that for a minute. You're going to wonder, oh, maybe he is changed. Well, then why is he still texting you? Why is he still popping up in your life? Why is he still interacting? Because a big part of it is a narcissist will still hoover even when they're in a relationship. Even if they have a kid with the new relationship, they don't care. They just care to keep lines open and channels accessed so they can interact with all their previous exes whenever they want to get an emotional, physical, or sexual high off of that person. That's all it is. Now you might see throughout this intermittent spots of begging to come back. And you're like, why are they begging? They dropped me. They don't care. I left them. Why are they actually begging? A lot of times the narcissist will beg you to get to the place so they can discard you. You discard the narcissist, they're like, this is frustrating. I lost control. How dare they reject me? I'm entitled to this person. So it's like this aspect of like, let me do whatever I can to get back with you. And then it disappears. Then the intimacy stops. Then the connection stops. Then the communication stops. Then they ghost you. But then they get to the place where they have the upper hand. And a lot of times you'll see them try and do different things that you wanted them to do in the relationship. So you're like, oh, they finally get it now. Let me get connected with them more. Let me actually engage with this more. But they don't get it. It's just another way to be able to manipulate, to hoover you, to get you back in. So you need to understand, regardless of where you are in the relationship, regardless of where the narcissist is in the next stage of how he's acting to you, there's always a chance that he's interacting and acting a certain way to get back with you, to even dump you, or to get back with you to have control. Hoover does not mean care. And so you need to be able to understand that clear and concise, that hoover is control, about controlling you. Hopefully this makes sense, and hopefully this helps just understanding some of the stages. Like, what stage are you on right now? You're like, right now he's gaslighting himself. Right now he's smearing me. Right now he's sending all his flying monkeys. Like, what stage are you in right now? Write that down below so that people can identify, oh, I'm with this too. Or you might find someone that's in the exact same stage as you that it might be a great person to connect with, of like understanding, oh, this is what's happening. How are you dealing with this? How are you processing this? So we'd love to have you interact with me. If you want to help with your healing and to move forward, you can interact at rawmotivations.com. Click on the one-on-ones. Would love to be a part of your healing, growth, change, and development. He's trying to be able to control the narrative. He's trying to be able to control you. He's trying to be able to control your perception. The question is, how long are you going to let him? Until you heal. Until you transform your life, until you move forward. I think there's a point in my life where I was just so pissed off and so frustrated that all I wanted was just having some peace. That's how I sold it in my mind. I created this reality of me cheating, of me lying, gaslighting, abusing, like all these different pieces that created this pressure cooker of a life. Pressure cooker in how my wife and I interacted, the arguments, the screaming, the yelling, the fight, all of these different pieces of us clashing and butting heads. There's this piece that I had pushed her so much to the edge that she'd be like, I'm going to leave. Be like, okay, fine. And then she'd get ready to leave, and I would be like, wait a second, can't we work on this? And then she'd stay. And in that moment, there would be this kind of like switch that would flip. It'd be like this switch first of like, wait a second, I don't want her to leave because then what am I going to do? How's it going to make me look? And then she would stay, and then I'd be like, now I have to deal with you. And there's this place where I was viewing my life as not having peace. Not getting to this place of like, oh, this is actually making me feel good. This is actually helping me be who I want to be. There's all these different pieces where I was like, I just want peace. And part of that peace is I just want you gone. Like, I just want you out of my life. If I can get you out of my life, whew, then I can finally do what I want. You see, but I was already doing that. I was already living how I wanted. I was already cheating. I was already interacting with other women. I was already going to work and being obsessed with work versus my family. Like, there was a lot of different pieces that I was already living the life I wanted. I was just doing it in secret. I don't want to do it in secret anymore. I wanted to be free. I wanted to just say, screw this. Like, let me just get what I want. Super selfish, super self-focused of what I wanted in the moment. But there was a piece of me that just wanted my wife to leave. I want you to consider for a moment that the narcissist in your life, regardless of what he says to you, regardless of what he explains or makes you feel or think in the moment, there's also a part of him that wants you to leave. Like, he wants you to walk out the door. He wants you to drive away so that he no longer has to deal with you. Some of this is sitting pretty weird for you guys. Let's break it down a little bit. The narcissist in your life cares about his image. He cares about how he's viewed. Now, inside of this, he's going to get addicted to different things. He's going to get obsessed with different things. He's going to be focused on different things. Maybe this is drugs, maybe this is alcohol, maybe this is women. Maybe this is his obsession with his image of how he's going to look to other people, whatever it might be. There's a piece where he's going to be obsessed about certain things. He's going to be focused on certain things that are going to bring him a temporary high, a temporary happiness to make himself feel better about himself. And when this happens, he wants this more. I want more women. I want more sex. I want more image. I want more. And then there comes you, which becomes this protagonist in the narcissist story, thinking like, oh, she's going to hold me accountable. She's the attacker. She's the aggressor. She's the one attacking me. Like, he has to switch this in his mind, because if he can paint you as the bad guy, then he's justified in being abusive to you. If he can make you look like the bad guy in his mind, then he's like, okay, I'm not actually being abusive. I'm being defensive. It's messed up. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that it's good. It's screwed up. But this is what oftentimes he's thinking. This is oftentimes what he's doing internally so that he can be justified in what he does. Now, there's a place inside of here where he just wants this to like fade away. It's like, how do I get out of this as quick and easy as possible? The problem is, there's not a good way to do it. Majority of narcissists as a whole are cowards. Simply put, They're a bunch of men that are masquerading as men that are just simply boys that aren't willing to own up to the shit that's actually inside. They're not willing to be honest. They're not willing to be transparent. They're not willing to actually work through the stuff inside. Instead, they're boxed up saying real men are just like this. And as a result, they don't have any healing, growth, change, or development, and they stay stuck. Narcissists are cowards. It's the easiest way to put it. I was a coward. I didn't tell my wife what I wanted. I just got what I wanted. I just did what I wanted. I just manipulated, gaslighted, abused so I could do what I wanted to do. Is he doing that to you? Probably, because simply he's not going to come out and say, hey, I want a divorce. Hey, I don't want you anymore. Hey, I'm going to go cheat on you. There's probably a lot of different versions. Now, there's some narcissists are going to say that. Some narcissists aren't. Okay? I'm not saying all. There's going to be a lot of times when he's going to want you to leave, but he's not willing to actually say that. He's not willing to actually communicate that because he's a coward. Because he's not willing to actually be a man and actually say, this is what's going on. I would rather cheat on you than I would be with you. But I don't want you to leave because then I don't want it to mess up my image. Now we start talking about narcissism. We start talking about what he's actually focused on, which is his image, how he looks. Maybe this is society. Maybe this is to his workplace. Maybe this is to his family. Maybe this is to his religion. Looking like the person that has it all together. Showing up to church and being like, yeah, I'm a great father and I'm a great husband. When in reality, he's an abusive asshole at home that's a coward and that wants you to leave. Now, why does he want you to leave? Because if you leave, he controls the narrative. If you leave, he looks like the good guy. You're like, that's not even possible. Really? Have you seen a narcissist before? They can spin a story so easy. Narcissists can sell paper towels to a wall. Like, they're going to find so many different ways to manipulate the story you believe because you've already been confused for a year, 5 years, 20 years. What makes you think they can't do that with someone else? The fact of the matter is there was a piece of me that wanted my wife to leave. Then there was this piece of like, oh crap, she's going to leave. Now I'm going to look bad because my wife has left me because I've cheated on her. So I need to keep her here. I need to make sure that she stays so that people see that I'm just not this deadbeat person. But at the same time, if she stays, then I don't get to go cheat and be with someone else. Because I've already confessed it. She already knows about it. So, you see what I mean? There's this place where I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I just didn't want the accountability, the consequences, or the responsibility of my actions. That's why narcissists are cowards. Because they want to do what they want to do, but they don't want to be accountable for anything. It's like toddlers. Like, I want to be able to do what I want, but I don't want to get in trouble if I do something wrong. But you're dealing with the same exact thing. A narcissist wants what he wants. That's it. Everything else is just playing to that. Everything else is just a piece in the puzzle. He's more concerned about what he wants in the moment than he is how it's going to hurt you, how it's going to affect anyone else, just how it's going to affect him, his image, how he looks. There's this piece of he's willing to sacrifice you for anything if it means he's going to look better. He's willing to sacrifice anything in the relationship if it means he's going to win the argument. If he's not going to be wrong, if he's not going to actually be the bad guy, if he's not going to be filled with shame because of the guilt of what he's actually done, if he can avoid all of that and it means running over you, heck yeah, he's going to do it. Simply because it's easier to be a coward and run over someone else than it is to deal with the vulnerable honesty of how he's actually showing up. This is how I played my life for such a long period of time. I would rather hurt and abuse someone else than I would actually show up and say, this is who I am. This is what I've done. Why? Because that vulnerability piece feels awful. It feels like death to a narcissist. So as a result, it's like, well, let me do something, even if it means I'm going to hurt someone else. Let me do something to avoid me being impacted, me being hurt. Because again, it's about the narcissist. Are you getting this? Narcissist cares about his image. Narcissist cares about his money. Narcissist cares about the narrative that he's trying to control, to sell to society, to sell to the public, to sell to his religion, his family, his coworkers, his friends. And you are the person that can break it all down. So at the same time, he wants you in the relationship so he can control that narrative, but he also wants you to leave so he can do whatever he wants. And this back and forth is going to create a lot of confusing experiences for you. It's probably created a lot of confusing experiences just now, just in the relationship. Over the past couple of years, you've seen a ton of confusion. You're like, does he actually want to be with me? Because he says I'm abusive. He says I'm emotionally disconnected. He says I'm the one cheating on him when I haven't done any of that. Like, if it's so awful, why doesn't he just leave? Typically, the narcissist doesn't leave when he's saying life is so awful because he's the one controlling the chaos. Consider for a moment you have a tornado, and in the eye of the tornado, in the very center, there's not a ton of chaos. The chaos is all around. That's where the narcissist lives. He lives in the center of the tornado, and he's like, oh, life is so awful. Like, I hate being with you. This is so bad. You're so abusive. It's such chaos, right? But he's in the center without the chaos because he's the one creating the chaos. He's the one where life is spinning around and destroying people, friends and family, destroying your life, destroying who you are, your confidence, your clarity, your certainty, your self-esteem, who you actually are. He's destroying all of that. And he's saying, but it's all about me. In reality, he feels the safest when he's the one controlling. When he's the one causing the confusion, the chaos, and the frustration in the moment. He'll use that as the narrative because he wants to protect himself. Well, it's not me, it's you. I'm not the problem, you're the problem. This relationship is just hurting me. When in reality, he's the one causing that. I always want to project it on my wife. I always wanted to blame her for everything. It wasn't me, it wasn't my fault. Because I was a coward. I'd rather put it on someone else than I would actually deal with the shit myself. The narcissist in your life is going to keep doing this over and over and over again. He's trying to be able to control the narrative. He's trying to be able to control you. He's trying to be able to control your perception. The question is, how long are you going to let him? Until you heal. Until you transform your life. Until you move forward. If you want to see how I do that, you can go to rawmotivations.com today. You always wanted to go to the beach. He always took you to the mountains. You felt bad because your needs and desires were never met. Then he's with the next woman, and he always takes her to the beach, and he never takes her to the mountains. And you're like, why wasn't I good enough? Because he's doing this for her. Now, what about when you leave the narcissist, and then he starts to get better? This doesn't make any sense at all. Why, when you leave him, would he start getting better? Many of you are hoping, praying, and thinking that this is what's going to happen, and it might. So let's talk about it a little bit. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I help liberate women that are trapped in toxic relationships, and I work with a select few men that are stuck inside the mindset of being a liar and a narcissist and helping them actually heal and develop. If you want to know more about what I do specifically, you can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. Would love to help you move forward in your healing process. Now, when we talk through this piece, and let's kind of just back it up here. We're going to talk through this piece today of this whole aspect of change and this whole aspect of him changing at the end of the relationship or after you leave. Now, first off, we need to clarify. I've done some videos on this, but if you're new here, I want you to understand this. There's change and then there's transformation. They're two different things, and we might use them interchangeably, but we really shouldn't. So I want to try to clarify early on. When people ask, can a narcissist change? They're typically asking, can a narcissist become more human, become more loving, be nice, actually have a healthy relationship, which doesn't involve change. Now, change is just a temporary thing. Like you change clothes and then you change clothes again. It's not like you change clothes and you're like, that's my permanent clothes. Those are the clothes I'm going to wear for the rest of my life. No, you change clothes. You should, at least. And inside this piece of changing, like this is a temporary thing. It's this modification. A lot of times I'll refer to it as like behavioral modification. You're like, hey, stop yelling at me. And he's like, okay, I won't yell anymore. But you, blah, 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 blah. And he's not yelling, but he's still yelling. You see what I mean? You're going to have different narcissists that will change and modify their behaviors to appear better. To appear like they look better in society. To appear better for you. To appear like he's doing the right things or whatever might go on. It's like, let me modify a couple things. Versus transformation. Now, transformation is this piece of changing from the inside out. This is piece that regardless if you leave him or not, he's willing to do the work required to transform who he actually is. The difference with transformation is it's not temporary, and it's not based on you. That's not based on saving the relationship. It's based on him actually wanting something different. I had someone the other day that was asking me a question. They were trying to understand. They're like, what caused you to change? What made you change? And like getting to that answer is extremely difficult for me. And it's not extremely difficult because I'm avoiding it. It's just extremely difficult of like the understanding, the realization of who I was, and then understanding that that's who I didn't want to be. And understanding that I was stuck in this cycle over and over and over again, that nothing was going to actually transform. Like everything I was doing was just changing. I was just white knuckling and gripping life, trying to get through it to be like, well, let me lie less today. Let me be less abusive today. Like, no, it never worked. Simply because I was trying to modify stuff. I was trying to do stuff from the outside in. I was trying to modify my behaviors to fit better into society versus actual transformation from the inside out. Now, the hard part is you get to the place where you get ready to leave, or you've already left, and he changes. A couple things will happen. One, he'll change at the end of the relationship. You say, I'm leaving, getting a divorce, separating, change, different guy, all of a sudden. Like he's more loving, he's more connected, he's more open. What's going on? He's actually involved with the kids, he's actually helping around the house. What's going on? Simply put, he found another way to manipulate you. Easiest way to put it. Everything he was doing before was no longer working. The manipulation he was used to doing, that you were used to accept, that when you finally said, I'm done, he's like, that manipulation is old. Can't use that manipulation anymore. Need to revert back to a new manipulation so that I can actually get what I want. So as a result, he starts giving you what you want, at least temporarily. Not long-term, just temporarily. Giving you what you want so you feel, oh, there's hope. He actually cares about me. There's actually something here in the relationship. Maybe this will work out. And so he starts to change at the end of the relationship. He modifies. He does things to try to appear better. Oftentimes, this is just a piece of control. Let me modify some things to be able to control and to keep you in my life. That's it. Okay? So this control piece that happens. Now, you also have you leave and then he changes. This is one of the hardest pieces for people to cope with because you leave and then you're wondering, well, if I go no contact, how am I going to tell if he actually gets better? How am I going to grow in this? How am I going to figure out if we can come back together? And I'm like, when you're leaving a toxic and abusive relationship, that's the last question you need to be focused on. What you need to be focused on is your growth, your development, your healing. Like if you don't focus on that, then this thought will just keep gnawing at the back of your mind and you will shortchange your healing every single time. Because you won't actually focus on the things you need to focus on. You'll be thinking, is he doing better? Can I grow so that I can be back with him? Maybe this will work out. And guess what? You still go through life with having these blinders on to the reality of who he's been and how he's showing up. But this is what people get confused about and get concerned about. If I go no contact, how will I know if he's healing? You go no contact so that you can heal. Period. Like you go no contact so that you have space and capacity to stop getting triggered by an abusive person so you can actually heal. But the problem is you start doubting. You're like, but I don't know. If you've been with a narcissist for 5 years and you decide to go no contact for at least a year. Then see where you're at health-wise. See where you're at mentally, emotionally, physically. Like see where you're at everywhere. And be like, okay, is this something that I want to entertain this negativity again? But it needs to be a good period of time. It can't just be, well, let me go no contact for a week and then reach back out. No, he's like, sweet, come back in. Let's manipulate more. Now, the hard part is when you bring another person into it. This is where you get the triangulation. This is where you get a little bit more confusing. This is where you start beating up yourself because he leaves you and he goes and gets with another woman. When this happens, you start to see him change. You start to see all this behavioral modification. And then you're left scratching your head being like, what does she have that I don't have? What does she have that made him change and I wasn't able to make him change? And you start to put your worth and your value based on him changing for another person. Now, a couple things you need to realize here. One, you're feeling the exact same way that some other woman was feeling before your relationship. And the woman that he's with now, she's going to feel the same way when he goes to the next relationship because he's shown up as a liar and a cheater consistently in your life. The second thing you need to understand here inside of this space and inside of this piece of him growing, changing, developing for another person, okay, let's put a pin in that, is this simple aspect of the other person is different than you. I know, it might be hard to believe, but the other person is different than you. This is where the narcissist starts to use and triangulate and make you feel bad. Best way I can illustrate it. You've always loved the beach. Love the beach. You want to vacation to the beach every single year. He doesn't love the beach, and he doesn't like the beach. He doesn't care about the beach, and he doesn't let you go to the beach. So as a result, you always go to the mountains. Okay? Silly illustration, but just play with it. Now he goes to the next relationship. Every single thing you see on social media, one, you're not supposed to be watching, okay? Because that's not going to help you heal. But everything you see on social media is him taking her to the beach. Now, your first thought is like, why wasn't I good enough to go to the beach with him? Why wouldn't he do that for me? He hated the beach. He probably didn't, to be honest. He probably just said that to manipulate you, to keep something back from you so that he could have that as leverage. He could have that as control. And there's the other spot of him posting on social media and him posting in a way to be able to showcase and show you, hey, look what I'm doing with this other person, is not real transformation. It's showboating. It's trying to be able to show you, oh, look how awful you were. Look how amazing I am. Oftentimes trying to trigger you to reach out, to interact, or just to feel bad about yourself. Now, the other piece inside of this is also him using it to be able to trigger and abuse you and to be able to lock in the new supply. You always wanted to go to the beach. He always took you to the mountains. You felt bad because your needs and desires were never met. Then he's with the next woman and he always takes her to the beach and he never takes her to the mountains. And you're like, why wasn't I good enough? Because he's doing this for her. But what you don't know about her is she actually loves the mountains and all she wants to do is go to the mountains, but he only takes her to the beach. Do you see? One, you have no clue. You see something, you think, why wasn't I good enough? And he sees it and he's like, I can leverage this in a different way to manipulate this person another way. Do you see this? This is what a narcissist does. Leveraging people against people. Leveraging circumstances against circumstances. Leveraging everything they can to have control and manipulation over another person. Not just because they want to control another person, but because they want to control the narrative of who he is. The image of how he comes across. Be able to reveal his darkest stuff to you and abuse you and show up to the rest of the world happy and smiling and moving forward. This whole piece of narcissistic abuse is extremely real. It is like cascading across our nation. It's cascading across the world. It's affecting people in more ways than you could ever imagine. And it's not going away. It's not shifting. It's not developing. It's not disappearing. It's only going to ramp up even more. And simply because he's going to continue to keep you in a spot, in a place of confusion. If you're stuck in confusion, you won't leave. As we talked about like the first video this week, like if he keeps you stuck in confusion, you won't leave at all. You will stay stuck. You will stay trapped. You will not be able to actually pull yourself free from him. That's all he's trying to do. Keep you stuck, keep you confused, keep you in the chaos. As a result, you feel crazy. You don't tap into clarity, to certainty, and to your confidence moving forward. If you want to understand how I actually help liberate people mentally and emotionally from a toxic relationship, you can go to rawmotivations.com/masterclass. I have a free masterclass that I run every single week, just showing and helping people understand how they can build back their clarity, their confidence, and their certainty to be able to move forward without being reliant on the narcissist in your life. It's rawmotivations.com/masterclass. Or if you want to work with me one-on-one or interact with me, you can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. Would love to be able to help you out and help you move forward in the healing process here today. If you're confused, if you're stuck, if you're trapped, I want to show you the path to freedom. So go to rawmotivations.com today. That person is not beneficial for your life. They're toxic, and you have to make sure you cut toxic people out of your life. So block, ghost, go no contact, and then start working on your healing. You can start before, but you'll find the most growth happen after you get no contact. Are you in a narcissistic relationship and you're not sure how to leave? Are you with someone who is toxic and you're not sure, what do I do to get away? How do I make those steps? A lot of times people have questions about breaking free from the narcissist because they're either worried about the ramifications, the fallout, or the smear campaign, or they're worried about how the other person's going to handle it, how they're going to feel about it, different aspects, different ramifications that are going to happen getting out of that relationship. If If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Ben Taylor. I run Raw Motivations. I'm a self-aware narcissist who's on this platform to promote awareness, growth, healing, and change. Awareness about what narcissism actually is. A lot of times people have a skewed sense of the version of narcissism that's in their mind. Maybe they think it's just the person snapping selfies of themselves, and they don't realize that it's involved in so much more. There's so much more manipulation and devious nature behind it that people don't realize what actually narcissism is or what all is made up of it. As a result, it can be very confusing to get out of a narcissistic relationship. It can be very confusing to be able to disconnect from that person because oftentimes they've wrapped you up in either a lot of fog or in a trauma bond. When we're talking about the fog that the narcissist puts you in, it comes down to an acronym that's been really popular recently, and that's fear, obligation, and guilt. When a narcissist takes you and puts you in the middle of a field and starts swirling around you the fear of them leaving or the obligation that you have to provide a certain thing or a certain service to them, or guilt and the aspect of you're feeling bad for things that the narcissist did, they start to confuse you. They start to lock you into a trauma bond. And the trauma bond oftentimes is developed off of hope or potential, thinking that the other person is going to change, that they're going to get better, that they're going to magically have an epiphany and all of a sudden figure out everything that they're doing wrong. Other times it's based off of cognitive dissonance. The idea where the narcissist says one thing and then they do the exact opposite. They slap you in the face and they say, I love you. Then they slap you in the face and then they say, I love you. And then they slap you in the face and then they say, I love you. And over a period of time, you start to think, hey, that's what love is. With cognitive dissonance, hope and potential, and all these different other aspects of it, it becomes very confusing for people to leave. Because maybe they don't know. Maybe I need to love them more. Maybe I need to work on this. And they try to run through all the different thoughts in their mind that's going to help the other person get better. Oftentimes people ask, what can I do to be able to get my narcissist to be aware? What can I do to be able to get them into therapy? What can I do? And oftentimes people try to go down a certain road of getting a narcissist into therapy, getting them into something. And as a result, nothing really happens. Because if you're the one trying to force the change, if you're the one trying to force getting the other person into therapy, into counseling, whatever it might be, typically nothing's going to happen and nothing's going to change. So you might be asking, okay, well, what about getting them just aware? Well, first off, you have to remember, awareness does not mean change. There's a lot of narcissists out there that are aware. There's a lot of narcissists out there that are aware of what they do on a day-to-day basis because they don't do it the same in front of everybody out there. There's a lot of narcissists that understand who they are, that actually see and acknowledge the attributes or the traits. Maybe not all the definitions, but they actually know what's going on and they don't care. So first off, you have to remember, if you get someone to be aware, that doesn't mean and it doesn't require that they're going to all of a sudden change or that they're going to change or modify their behaviors. The other part that's really hard is getting someone aware who doesn't think they need to be aware can be very challenging as well. Because at the crux of it, the ego, the entitlement, the sense of being like the center of the universe in one sense, ultimately makes narcissists impregnable to someone actually saying, hey, I think you're wrong. Because a narcissist is never wrong, at least not in their mind. And so it can be almost virtually impossible for people to get narcissists to become aware. So the problem is people stay in those relationships longer. They're like, maybe I can get them better. Maybe I can make them aware. Maybe I can help them see the light. And what happens is you normally change and you lose every single part of you to someone else. And to someone else that never changed and never modified themselves to try to be better for you. Or to try to be supportive or loving or caring, whatever it might be. So a lot of times people try to go down the road of maybe I should just tell them that they're a narcissist. Maybe I can wake them up. Maybe this will make it better. And maybe this is what I need to do to either, provide a change, or then I know for sure that they're a narcissist and then I can leave the relationship. And oftentimes when people do this, they start to find out that it's actually worse, 9 times out of 10, to tell the other person that they're a narcissist. Because a lot of times that person will start up looking up narcissism and researching it for the purpose of switching it back on you, manipulating you and saying, hey, you're actually the toxic one. You're actually gaslighting me now. Now you're yelling at me. Now you're manipulating me. And all these different types of things you start to see thrown back at you. Time and time again, when we mention to people like, hey, don't tell them that they're a narcissist, don't accuse them of that, because then this will happen. A lot of times it does happen. So you might be thinking, what do I do to be able to get out? Like, I just want to be able to leave. Do I leave a note? Do I talk to them? Do I set an ultimatum? Like, what do I actually do? Well, a lot of times when people are getting ready to leave the situation, they'll give the narcissist like a note or like a list or something that's like telling them like, hey, this is why I'm leaving. I'm leaving because, you can't respect me. I'm leaving because you can't spend time with me. I'm leaving because, whatever it might be. There's normally a litany of things. It's not just one thing. But there's a whole bunch of things that they're saying, I'm leaving because of this. I would caution you a lot of times not to do that. Because when you actually give a list per se, if you actually give like a scripted out, hey, this is why we're breaking up, this is why I'm leaving you, a lot of times those are the very things that the narcissist is going to change, twist around, and modify in order to still be with you, in order to still lock you into that type of supply. And so you'll see narcissists all over the place that will meet the lists, that will check off the boxes, that'll get into therapy, that they'll say they're changing just to be able to keep you a little bit longer. And as a result, it gets even more confusing to you of like, okay, well, maybe I should stay because now they're changing. Maybe I should stay because now they're in therapy. They're doing all the things that I wanted them to do. Well, oftentimes they're doing that just to be able to keep you and manipulate you a little bit longer. I've done a couple of videos on that about when the narcissist at the end of the relationship, when you try to leave, like all that type of stuff, that a lot of times it's just a manipulation tactic. And so people are like, okay, but then what do I do? Really, the crux of it is you leave. And I'm not saying that to just sound cheesy and be like, oh, like just leave, because a lot of people say that. Well, a lot of people say that and they don't have a clue about what's going on. But the first step really is getting to the place where you go no contact. Sometimes that might be where people have to phrase the text of being like, hey, I can't do this anymore. Have a good life. Sometimes it might be people saying like, hey, I still love you, but I can't do this. Like, I can't be with you because of everything we've gone through, because my hurt is too deep, because the pain is too real, whatever it might be. A lot of times people have to phrase it a certain way so that the narcissist understands like, hey, it's over. Do they always realize it's over? No, not necessarily. Because the next thing you have is the possible smear campaign that might come, or the possible retaliation that you have to be careful of. I always try to caution people whenever they're going through a breakup, whenever they're leaving, divorcing, anything like that, if there's any hint of physical safety or insecurity with that, please make sure to be safe. Make sure to do whatever it takes to be safe, whether that's a protective order, whether that's moving, whether that's taking a different path home, like whatever it might be. Do whatever you can to make sure you're safe. A lot of times when people, when they're in like those like questionable or like toxic relationships that might be unsafe, they'll take precautions. They might have the divorce paper served and they live in another house for a week or two. They set up like cameras to make sure that they're protected, that they can start to see like, hey, something's actually going on. I need to protect myself. So be really smart about it when you go to the place of breaking up with a narcissist. A lot of times how we counsel is by leaving, is by going no contact. Whether that's you send one last text, whether that's one last interaction, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, like you should have already set boundaries in the relationship. And if you haven't, then it's something that you probably need to do. But if you've already set those boundaries in the relationship and the narcissist isn't willing to abide by them, they don't need an explanation. They don't need a long drawn out conversation, because you know that's what it's going to be. You know it's going to be, well, I don't think I can be together because of X, Y, and Z. One, it's going to be a giant argument. And two, a lot of times they're going to modify some stuff or just shame and devalue you. And then you'll apologize for having those boundaries to start off with. So please be careful whenever you're leaving a narcissist, when you're getting out of that relationship. But at the end of the day, what it needs to be is that you leave. And that you walk away from the relationship, you block, you ghost, you go no contact. That means there's no way possible for them to contact you. Don't be one of the people that said we went no contact and then I heard from him like 2 weeks later. Like, that's not no contact. No contact is where there's no possible way for them to interact with you unless they show up on your doorstep. One, you don't have to answer the door. Two, call the cops. Like, get rid of them as fast as you can, because that person is not beneficial for your life. They're toxic, and you have to make sure you cut toxic people out of your life. So block, ghost, go no contact, and then start working on your healing. You can start before, but you'll find the most growth happen after you get no contact. Maybe while you're in contact and you're trying to get to the place of breaking it off, or you work on your exit strategy, journal. Or write down the stuff that's happened in the relationship. It doesn't have to just be all negative, but it does have to be real. It does have to be true to what's actually going on, because so often we look at the past, and over the period of time, the highs and the lows, all we can see is the highs. You can only see the peaks of the mountains as you look far away. You can't really see the valleys in between. And a lot of times people want to stay with a narcissist or think like, oh, it's not that bad, because all they see are the highs and they don't see the lows. So make sure you're acknowledging what the truth is. Make sure you're not giving them a list or going into explanation. Make sure you're leaving the relationship and you're ghosting and you're blocking, so there's no way for that person to come back into your life and manipulate you. Typically, if you're in a toxic relationship, investing into you is back burner and is non-existent in your life. You haven't invested time, money, or energy into you growing, developing, and changing and transforming into who you want to be. You haven't been allowed to. So I get it, but we have to start somewhere. When we talk about leaving a narcissist, many people lack motivation to do this, and they start to wonder and ask the question, how do I get the motivation? How do I actually leave? To be able to paint the picture in the best accurate light, we need to be able to establish why you're currently stuck. Typically, people are stuck in a toxic relationship in an addictive pattern. The best way to describe this is as an addict. Now, an addict doesn't always like what they're addicted to, right? Like someone might not always like the drugs or the alcohol that they're addicted to, but it's an addiction, so they keep going back to it. Just like you keep going back to the narcissist over and over and over. It's not because you just love him so much. It's not because you like him so much. It's not because you have such an amazing, connected, wonderful relationship. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as toxic. But when this is happening, there's this pull. There's this drive that goes into you of like, oh, let me go back to him. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's obligation, maybe it's guilt, maybe it's the hope that he's going to change. Maybe it's the cognitive dissonance of not knowing what to believe. So you're like, well, I might as well stay with him. I might as well go back. Inside of this, an addiction piece gets formed. This becomes a bond between the two of y'all that it makes it incredibly hard to break and to sever. We typically refer to them as trauma bonds. People are addicted in this piece of trauma bonds. You could even call some of them soul ties if you want to look at it in that light. But it is a bond that is made between you and this toxic person. Oftentimes, it is this piece of trauma that establishes it. And so as a result, there is this connection between you and another person. Now, the hard part is you get addicted to either that particular person or that style of person. Sometimes you get addicted to that style of person because of your parents who actually raised you. The person that was in your life the most, that was actually toxic. So you start to think and feel this is normal. This is how I should live. This is the engagement of life. It's having this person in my life and having them interact this way. This feels normal, so let me continue that cycle. And you'll see people that cycle from narcissist to narcissist to narcissist thinking, well, the next one's going to save me. The next one's going to be better. And all it's really doing is you're just becoming a narcissistic magnet because you keep going back to what feels normal and what feels okay. All right, so that's just kind of establishing ground level, and we have a lot of other videos on that, but that's just establishing ground level of we're talking about narcissism and we're talking about this addiction piece that we call a trauma bond. So that's what gives you the foundation. This is what you're addicted to. This is what you're stuck with. And so then people are asking, how do I have the motivation to leave? How do I actually go from being here and being stuck in this addiction to leaving? One of the first things we have to do is change your mindset. If we don't change the thought process and the mindset that you currently have, you will continue to sell yourself a story that tells you to stay stuck with him. Now, this story can have many different facets, and everybody's story is individualized and different. It could possibly be, I'm not good enough to leave. It could be, hey, he left me because of the fact that I wasn't good enough. There's many different pieces that story can actually come back to, but oftentimes it will have you and it will have him in that story, in that thought process, in that idea. And inside that single sentence, it will typically be a piece that entraps you, that keeps you stuck to him. And if we don't change the thought process, nothing will change. Think of it this way. You can have someone who is a dry drunk, who is still in that place of operating the same as an addiction, but they might not be actually drunk. You also have this piece where if someone is just pulled away from alcohol for a period of time, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're fixed. doesn't necessarily mean that they're healed. They might go through withdrawals and they might feel quote unquote better, but the end result, if you put a glass in front of them and they still go back to it, then you know, hey, the mindset piece didn't change enough. The thought process didn't change enough for them to be willing to sit in that environment and say, no, I have no pull, I have no desire to this. So the addiction piece is still there. Just getting someone away from it won't necessarily fix it, at least not all the time. The same thing goes for the toxic relationship. You just going no contact isn't going to fix it. This is why oftentimes people will come to Raw Motivations and they might ask me when we're doing like an intake or an application for them to join one of the programs, and they're like, do I have to go no contact right now? And I just tell them, no. We're not talking about you going no contact right now. We're talking about you healing, you getting clarity, you figuring out you. And if that leads you to a place of no contact, then great. If it doesn't lead you to no contact, but it leads you to a healed state, great. Because we want to be able to help you grow, change, and develop in how you're showing up for you. So back to the initial question, how do you get the motivation to leave? So let's look at the word motivation and let's talk through what this looks like. Motivation is really hard to have with inertia. In fact, it's impossible. And what I mean by this is there has to be some level of movement before there can be motivation. Think of it this way of having a car and you're sitting in the car and you've turned the car on, and in this part you're like, I have the motivation to drive. But the problem is until you actually put that car into drive and you actually press the gas, there is no movement to fulfill that motivation. As a result, you will still stay there. So no matter how much motivation you think or feel or want to say you have, until there's actual movement, there's no motivation to keep going. As a result, you just stay stuck. This is what he is counting on. The narcissist in your life wants to make sure you don't have the motivation or drive to move forward, and as a result, you stay stuck permanently. This was what brings in the isolation from other people. This is what brings in the isolation from even yourself, of wanting to just curl up in a ball and die. Have this depressed state that leaves you to a place of stress, anxiety, that doesn't let you leave his grasp on you. And so inside of this, you will see this piece of motivation that doesn't happen. Let's say you want to go to the gym and you get really fired up and motivated, but you don't do anything. You just sit on the couch or you just stay in bed. And this piece of, well, I want to be really motivated. And once I'm motivated, then I'll do something. Guess what? It'll never happen. You will stay in bed on the couch forever. Simply because you can't have motivation without momentum. There has to be movement. There has to be something that starts to move you forward to gather this piece of motivation. So when we talk through leaving a narcissist and getting out of a toxic relationship, we're focusing so much on the mindset, how your thought process is going. Because if you say you can't do something, you can't. You won't do it. It won't be possible for you because you've already limited it. So many times people get to this limited mindset inside of narcissistic abusive relationships with families. They first off start off with, well, I have kids, so I can't go no contact. And it automatically limits and shuts off half of the resources out there where you could actually go no contact with kids, where you could establish tons of communication barriers, tons of different ways to be able to have a buffer and a space so that you can actually heal. But as soon as you say the words, I can't, it comes out and you understand, hey, it's not possible. There's no way I'll even consider it. Understand that it might not be that you have the right level of resources. It might just be that you're not resourceful enough inside of this. So inside of this, just understand what you say, your words have a lot of power, have a lot of effect on you internally, mentally, and emotionally. So we have to change the mindset, what you're actually thinking. Then we have to start having movement, right? Like this is a piece. We can't have motivation without having some movement, some momentum that starts moving you forward consistently. So inside of this, we have to start investing into you. How are you actually investing into you? What does this actually look like? Typically, if you're in a toxic relationship, investing into you is back burner and is non-existent in your life. You haven't invested time, money, or energy into you growing, developing, and changing, and transforming into who you want to be. You haven't been allowed to. So I get it. But we have to start somewhere. Now, this could be as simple as you starting to regain control over your life by going to the gym, by going for a walk, by working out. This slight piece here can start to build slow confidence because you're showing up for you, not for him, not for anyone else. You're showing up for you. This piece could be as simple as a daily meditation practice where you start to get clear mentally and emotionally. Not that you're just living in blank space in the moment, but you're getting clear of understanding, hey, I'm going to let thoughts come in and I'm going to let thoughts go out so that I'm not constantly stressed and have this level of anxiety. There's this piece that when people get to a place with high stress, with high anxiety, I've had doctors that have actually told people, hey, why don't you consider meditation? Because inside of this, it's a learning and a calming process inside your body. Oftentimes people just think, oh, like it's just a bunch of woo-woo crazy crap. Like, no, like there's a lot of scientific pieces behind meditation of actually helping calm your nervous system so you can show up better. It's another piece where you can regain control over you. And so when we talk through this piece of developing motivation, we have to develop momentum in small, tiny areas. Think of it like this. When you first started to tie your shoe as a young kid, you didn't know how to do it. So as a result, the first time it was really uncomfortable, didn't make sense. You couldn't figure out which loop went where, and it was just frustrating. But probably now, after several years of doing it, you're probably an expert at tying your shoe and you don't even think about it. It's just muscle memory. It's just done. This is the same thing that we need to build. The problem is you start to feel frustrated of, why is this working? I can't figure this out. It's okay. You're learning. It's something new. You haven't been able to focus on this for 5, 10, 20, 30 years because of the toxic relationship you've been in. So we need to start building it from the ground level up. Start helping you understand how do you actually change your thought process, your ideas, how you're actually developing you. Because you haven't had the chance, the time, the money, the space to invest into you. Is this making sense? We can't have motivation without momentum. Momentum is this piece of movement, of you actually starting to take control of your life. Put yourself back in power of how you're showing up daily for you to transform into who you're called to be. If we don't do this, you remain stuck permanently. No amount of motivation, inspiration, thought process that makes you super excited and rah, 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 let's go, is going to help you actually make the moves that you need to move. As a result, you stay stuck permanently. So I want to ask you, what are you actually doing today to help you move forward? We focus on developing and showing people how to do this in all 4 domains of life. In your physical aspect, in your relational aspect, in your spiritual aspect, and inside of business. Because we believe if we can help you get momentum to bring your confidence and your clarity back into who you actually are, show you how to do this, help you rewire your mindset, we can help you be free. And I've seen this happen with hundreds of people that I've worked with. You can be free and you can be liberated from the toxicity you're currently stuck in. Don't take my word for it. I want you to hear from other people that have gone through this process and been liberated. So go to rawmotivationscoaching.com to be able to hear from several other women who have broken free. Read some testimonials there. Understand this is how I liberate women from toxicity to freedom. So check it out. Go to rawmotivationscoaching.com. My wife's suitcase thumped down the stairs one more time. This wasn't the first time that her suitcase had been packed and ready to go. This wasn't the first time that she'd pulled her suitcase down and gotten ready to throw it in the car. Now, the majority of times when she'd gotten close to packing everything up, I normally begged her to stay. There's this piece of, oh, please don't go. Like, I want to make this work. Like, I'm trying. I'm working on myself. Like, why don't you just stay? And then she'd stay. But it didn't really change anything. Like, nothing changed in our relationship. There's no dynamic that shifted. There's no peace inside of me that shifted. It was just, okay, like, now I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with the aftermath of her walking away and making me look bad. I don't have to deal with the aftermath of what am I going to do or how am I going to live or being alone. And so this time when my wife was taking the suitcase and it was thumping down the stairs, like, I knew there was a shift inside me that this was the actual one. Like, this is the one where she was actually going to be free. Like, she was actually going to leave me. She took it out to the car, put it into the car, and got our daughter. And picked up our daughter and got her in the car and buckled her up. And I knew this was the last time, even though as I was talking to her, and even though as I was going back and forth, there was a piece of me that kept begging her. Like, I kept saying the words, please don't go, we can make this work. But she had this different resolve inside of her. Like a different resolve that regardless of how much I kept saying things, she was still going to leave. And this resolve was built up over years of me saying something and then never following through. Of me saying I was going to do something. Me saying I was going to have change in my life, but then never following through. The fact that she was leaving now wasn't because I hadn't shown up, quote unquote. Wasn't the fact that I wasn't working on myself, because I was already in therapy. I was in therapy. I did therapy for EMDR for 6 months. Then I was in regular talk therapy for about 5 months before we got to the place where she was leaving. And inside of this place, there was a weird battle that was going on inside of me. There was this piece of frustration because of everything I'd put my wife through, that she had gotten to the place where she had been oscillating back and forth. Do I stay or do I go? And this piece hadn't just been a mental, emotional, question. It'd been an actual physical, getting in the car, driving off, then coming back. She didn't know what to do because of the trauma that I'd put her in. But I didn't realize at the moment. I was just pissed off because I didn't like the circumstance that I was in. I was frustrated. I was mad because of the fact that she would keep changing her mind. That's how I viewed it. And I'd attack her for it. I'd be like, why do you keep changing your mind? Just make up your mind. You either stay with me or you go. Trying to be able to force a decision on her really quickly. There's a piece in my mind where I'm like, I moved on really quick. Why can't you? Because I didn't want to give any grace or pause to actually deal with her emotions. I just wanted to move past it so I didn't have to sit in the shit of the things that I caused. And so here we are, and she's getting ready to leave. Now, inside of this, like I said before, I'm begging her. I'm asking her, please stop. Just stay. I'm getting frustrated, but I realize I can't get super frustrated because that'll piss her off even more. But inside, what's happening is really weird. Because of that oscillating of her going back and forth, there's a piece of me that doesn't care at all. There's a piece of me that just wants a decision. There's a piece of me that just wants some type of peace of knowing, okay, she's either going to be here or she's not going to be here. Now I know how to be able to plan. And what happened was my mind started going further ahead than in that moment. You see, every time my wife said, oh, I'm going to leave, my mind started spiraling out and thinking oh, okay, what's going to happen when she leaves? What am I going to do? Who am I going to talk to? Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? Who's next? There was always these thoughts and plans. And as a result, before she even left, there was a period of my life where I was already checked out completely. Because I'm like, okay, once you leave, I have a plan. Once you leave, I know who I'm going to. Once you leave, I know what's happening. And so in those moments, there's this push-pull of me being like, no, please stay. Please be with me. I'll work on it and change. And then there's also in the back of my mind being like, but if she leaves, this version of reality that I've already predicted is going to happen, who I'm going to has already predicted is going to happen. That's kind of an awesome idea. So why don't you go? So it produced this weird dynamic for her where she's constantly feeling like she's pushed and pulled away. Thinking I should stay and I should be with him, and thinking he doesn't really want me. Both were true. I didn't get her. I didn't understand. I didn't care. And I also didn't want her. I wanted what I wanted. I wanted my reality. I wanted what I wanted to happen be true. And so in this place, I would rather have her leave than I would have her stay. Because I already sold myself into a different version of reality of what I actually wanted, who I wanted to be with, how I wanted life to look like. Maybe all this shakes out. We can be friends down the road. Who cares? I know what I want in this moment. You see, narcissists are very tuned into what they want in the moment, not what they want down the road. They're not really having a 5-year plan of where they want their life to be or who they want to be with. They're just looking at what is the next step right now that makes me feel good about myself. This is why it's so easy to have a narcissist be addicted to stuff, because it's not looking at hey, what does this addiction do to me, down the road? It's oh, this makes me feel good right now, so let me do it. That's all the narcissist is actually looking at. So when you're thinking about him in your life, you're like, wait a second, does he even care about me long term? No, he doesn't. He's just thinking about the exact moment. That's all I was. I was looking at the exact moment thinking, okay, just make up your mind, then I'll be able to figure this out. Then I'll be able to be with the person I want to be. Then I'll be able to move forward. But I can't move forward. I can't heal myself if I'm stuck with you constantly, this is my story, always traumatizing me, leaving me, coming back. See, victim piece? All this victim piece coming out, selling myself into, oh, woe is me that she's leaving. Not, she's leaving because of me. Narcissists will reframe all of their realities so that they feel better about themselves. I had to be able to switch it in my head so that I would feel better about the shit that I was doing, about how I was treating her, about how I was making her feel. So I didn't have to feel like the bad guy. So standing in this moment as she get ready to leave and she's got the car packed, she's got her daughter in the car, she's getting ready to get in. There's this piece inside of me that wants her to leave. Because if she leaves, then I can move on. I can focus on the next woman. I can focus on the next thing that I want, because it's not about her. It's about me. It's about what I want in that moment. So I stand there for a moment watching them pull away. This is the part where you'd think in like the movie that there'd be tears and there'd be these emotions actually pop up from the surface. This would be my breaking point, my rock bottom, my awareness piece of like, oh, this is where he gets it and he finally transforms. And as I stood there, I turned around, walked into the house, sat down on the front stairs, picked up my phone, and called the next person. The narcissist that's in your life doesn't care about you and wants you to leave. The reason why he wants you to leave versus him leaving is he wants you to look like the bad person so he can feel better, so he can feel justified, so he can feel like he, quote unquote, tried. He wants you to leave. That sounds weird because in the moment you're like, well, he keeps begging me to stay or he keeps begging me to come back. And he's going to do that because he doesn't want to be alone at the same time. It's a weird dynamic. It doesn't logically make sense. It doesn't make sense if he's looking long term of like, oh, this is what I want and this isn't going to get me there. But he wants you to leave. There's a piece that narcissists know that something's wrong with them. Whether that's to the fact where they know they're a narcissist, they know they're toxic, they know they're hurting other people, or they just know that something's weird. Something's off, and as a result, nothing seems to work. They're always the victim. There's always a piece there of slight awareness. The main pieces are typically avoiding it because avoiding it is easier than actually confronting it and dealing with the truth of the situation. I didn't want to admit the stuff that was going on inside. I had to blame it on her, project it on someone else, and say, oh, let me just get away from her, and then everything will be okay. The thing was, nothing ever changed. Instead, I just continued into the next cycle with the next person over and over. This would continue to happen until I actually got to the place that if I don't change me, nothing is actually going to change. But I need you to understand that the narcissist in your life typically is in this place of wanting you to leave, begging you to stay, but then thinking if I get rid of her, then I don't look like the bad guy, then I can go do what I want, then I, because that's all he's ever thinking about in the moment. He's not thinking about you. He's not thinking about the kids. He's thinking about his image. How does he protect that? His money. How does he keep that? His appearance to other people. How does he maintain that? That's all the narcissist cares about. If this resonated with you and you'd like some help with this, please go to rawmotivation.com/breakthrough to see how I work with people on a day-to-day basis to help break through their mindset so they can actually be free from toxicity. They can actually get in the car, drive away, and say, no more am I going to actually lower myself and my standards and my value to put up with a guy that doesn't care about me. If I can help with that today, go to rawmotivation.com/breakthrough.